Hello, my name is Eric, and today we are containerizing a Rust Actix or Axum microservice and deploying it on AWS Apprunner. So, for this microservice, I wanted to have a lottery number generator. It's really amazing to see how the elderly community in Puerto Rico starts new conversations and friendships just by arguing about, does this number look pretty to you? Does it look ugly? Do you think it'll win? Because there are also prizes for getting close enough to the winning number. So it's really, and then people they use that to just get into better conversations. It's a really amazing thing to see. Um, so I thought it'd be nice if there was a link where they could just generate random numbers, so the for the people I know, and and then start asking their friends like, oh, does this number look ugly to you or pretty to you? You want to try it? So stuff like that. I thought it'd be super fun. And yeah, this is the README, and I'm going to go into prerequisites. First, we're going to install Rust. The second thing we're going to do is look at permissions. So whether it is an IAM user with attached policies or attaching a role to an AWS Cloud 9 instance, make sure that the AWS App Runner full access is in there. And you may or may not need some of the others. The administrator access might be one of them. And other than that, as far as the frameworks, they have different cargo duct HUML files. Obviously, just make sure that whichever one you use, you have everything that you need. And remember to look into their documentation. So, for example, this is Actix's one. For Actix and Axum, I actually found Axum much easier to use. For Actix, I had to employ some. I I ran into some interesting errors that I'll touch upon later on. And now let's just jump into the logic. So here I have I have the function that I want to use. I have the welcoming message and then the message that they get with the number that they requested. So the idea is that they specify the number of digits that they want, and that's the random number that's generated. And so that's as far as the logic goes. Now, I am going to go here briefly. So assuming you've built the cargo project, you've done everything that you need, then once you've written all your logic, I should say, then you build your cargo project. Since we're doing a web app, we're going to need to be able to test it. Now, usually this is a lot longer, but because I pre-built it so that it doesn't take as long, that's why it looks very short. You're going to do after build, you're going to do cargo run. Now, the cool thing is that it's running locally. So now, for example, let me clear this. So if I do, for example, curl local host, just that, that's the message in the app. That's the welcome page. So now I'm going to do 5, and then I got my 5 random digits, 6 random digits, 2 random digits. There we go. Okay, so now that we've tested it locally, we're comfortable that it works, can crash the process. And now let's move into the next phase because that for what we're going to need for App Runner, which is the Docker file. So for both of them, not specifically not both of them, rather I should say, centering on the Docker file for the Actix web app, I ran into two interesting errors. And I'm going to get this to build first, and then we're going to get into the nuance of that. So here's a Docker file. We're going to build it. I could do make build, but I want to paste it directly here. Let me just check that I have no other roaming images. Docker image ls. Oof, got quite a few. This should be fine though. Ooh, by the way, great opportunity for me to touch upon something good. So you might be wondering, wow, so many Docker images. You either erase them frequently, which could be an issue, or because that's a bit annoying, or you could just have a resizing script that you get from the AWS documentation. Let me open it up. And this is just to literally resize the volume for the AWS Cloud 9 instance that you're using. So I resized mine to 50 gigabytes and we're good. Then if I ever feel the need, I'll just erase all those images. And now, while that's building, it's in the final stage. I'm going to get into the nuance of the Docker file. So I had an issue where I got errors. Let me actually jump to the README to give you the specifics of it. Here they are. I got first when I had the, oh, perfect. When I had just this line, as Debbie and Buster Slim, when it was this image, I kept getting, when I was building the Docker file or running it. I got, oh, glib 2.3334 is missing, so on and so forth. So when I switched the image to Debian testing, it worked. Now the next error I got was that not everybody I know got this one, but I got this one. Curl 56, let me highlight it. Rec v connection set by peer. When I got this one, the way I fixed this one was by fixing the port binding. So if you, I used to have my, let me show you my logic. I still have it commented. Main doc rs. I used to have the bind as this, but when I switched the bind to 0.0.08 colon 8080, that's when it worked because it's able to just map it all to a general one. And as far as the Docker file, that's what I specifically wanted to highlight. I'll come back after this is done building. All right, the Docker image has been built. Let me show you how to run it. Docker run. So let's do it outside that terminal session. So now, if I do curl local host, there you go. The English instructions and then the Spanish instructions plus a healthy shout out. Yeah, we're accessing the Docker image. Sorry, we're running the application from the Docker image. And 5 digits, 3 digits, so on and so forth. All right, so that moves us into the next phase. Before we move on, it's always good to do a Docker PS, get the container ID, and stop the running image so that you don't have too much stuff running. Docker stop. All right. Now we can't, but now we killed the application, so we can't do that we can't call it anymore. Now let's head into the final phase, and it's deploying on Apprunner. So here's something interesting that I want to highlight before we jump into it. Take a look at the Fargate on-demand vCPU resource count for your region, because where your app service, Apprunner service ends up, take into account what region it's going to be deployed in, just so that you're always under the acceptable quotas, because otherwise you'll have trouble deploying. An issue I ran into today, actually, and let's jump into giving you an example for how to create an ECR repository where the Docker image is going. This is where all the images are going. I already made it, but you can make it private, give it a name here, and then select create. It's super straightforward. It's a one-page process. Now for the app runner, it's actually a little bit different. So let me show you what mine looks like. This is an old service. Okay, now we're making a new one, container registry, because it's going to come from ECR. Browse. Oh, by the way, I forgot to specify one more thing. Let's open container registry one more time. As soon as you create the image, go into the image and then, or just the repo itself actually, because this is all you'll have when you do it. And look at view push commands. That's exactly what you need to execute. I just finished executing it now because it took a long time. So I have it as make deploy AWS East. So it starts with a cargo build, then it keeps on going, and this is where it built the Docker image, Lotto Actix East. It tags as the latest image, and this pushed region is where it says like, okay, we sent it to the ECR container registry. And but so I did that with the push commands here. Okay, now that we're all up to speed, back to Uprunner. Container registry, ECR, Lotto Actix East, automatic so that every time you push a new image, it redeploys. Apprunner ECR access role. Okay, let's hit next. Sometimes you have to experiment with these values. Even I sometimes, after deploying something, still experiment. For the purposes of the demonstration, I'm going to, let's call this demo service. I'm going to send it here because my actual service is in the Oregon region or Ohio, one of those two. And yeah, let's leave it at 2 virtual CPUs, port 8080 because that's where it's at. Health, I usually modify this to allow just enough time. There we go. Let's say 15. Just enough time so that it checks the ports and doesn't declare doesn't say that the service fails as a false negative. False negative. When in reality it does work. Create deploy. And now this takes a couple minutes, so I'll come back when this is all said and done. All right, it's been deployed. So there we go. I modified the code to say AWS demo Actix, and so that this would be the one for the demo. There you go. It's been deployed. Keep an eye on the quotas though, because if you do exceed the quotas, it becomes for the given region, becomes difficult to have app runner instances. So always choose the region with the most bandwidth. Other than that, thank you for watching. See you soon.